Hey, guess who's back? Unbelievable scenes. It's me and Chuck. Anyway, you guys know what to do. Hit like and subscribe, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. And guess what, Big Tones? No more Benny Feelhaber. We love you, Benny. That was you last week, but now we're back.
You're back.
The crew.
Yeah.
Jimmy Conrad, Conradinho, Red Dots. I'm here for you. Alongside Charlie Davies, Chuck Wagon, Bingo. Chuck, you and I, Tones, before we go anywhere, Chuck and I just got back from Belfast where we were doing the UEFA coaching course.
Oh, I know.
Chuck, great to see you. Listen. I don't know how you're feeling, but I feel smarter. How are you? Are you feeling smarter as well about the game?
I feel inspired as well. Motivated. I think we had incredible conversations. So yes, 100%. I feel a little bit more educated.
Educated, inspired, and dare I say, Big Tones, maybe even a little more handsome. I didn't think it was possible.
Hey!
Slow down. Slow down.
I love it. Big Tones, what'd you do this weekend?
This weekend, I was working 12 hours a day at CBS. I just got back yesterday covering. We had Serie A, we did the League One, we did League Two. We had everything. We did it all while you guys were just chilling out in Ireland doing nothing.
Yeah, you said covering those leagues. You're basically covering our butts, and we appreciate you and Benny for making that happen. All right, so there was some big news, and it was around Mauricio Pochettino dropping a 27-man roster. I believe you and Benny spoke about that last week, but we got to get mine and Chuck's thoughts on this. I think what's interesting, Chuck, when Tones wasn't around, we had our 18-man roster. We had locks that we thought for sure were going to be on this team, right? And he's got 27. He's going to have to trim it down to 23 for the Gold Cup, but he said he's picking those 23 from this pool of players. The actual roster, we only got 11 right out of our 18 locks, Chuck. We might need to go back to the UEFA coaching course to be better at analyzing. And so I kind of want to get into where we made some missteps. Are we going to start defensively? Okay, here we go. We're going defenders. So we only got 3 of the 6 that we had. Dest.
All right, whoa. We also have to take into consideration Anthony Robinson here. He would typically, obviously, he's a lock. He's the best left back by a mile, but he's been dealing with I think
that's
some sort of ailment, right? So the only reason he's not going is because he's absolutely in need of rest and recovery.
All right, no, that's fair. There's definitely going to be.
My man had over 3,100 minutes in the Premier League this season. So.
Yeah, and he's been working, and it's been out there for a while that he's been dealing with, an injury that's been nagging him for quite some time. So if you can give him some time to address that, whether it's through surgery or just rest, obviously that's going to be in the best interest of everybody. So Jedi Robinson's out, Dest is in, McKenzie's in, Richard's in. That's what we got. We missed out on Joe Scally and Austin Trusty. Trusty just lost to Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup final, which didn't allow Celtic to win the domestic treble. But he didn't play in that game at all. Liam Scales ended up getting the nod next to CCV in that game. So we thought he was a bit of a long shot anyway, even though we said lock. I think we both agreed that maybe it was a good time to look at him. Mm-hmm. Big Tones, what are you saying? You weren't involved in our roster lock episode, but
the one I'm surprised that's not here is Joe Scally from that group that you just picked, right? He's the one that kind of, I assumed that I would have been right with you guys that was a lock in this camp. So out of the ones we just showed, that's Trusty. I'm not so surprised. Anthony Robinson, of course, and I want to get into that a little bit, with regards to how that relates to what Christian Pulisic's going through. But that would be the only sort of one that I would have been surprised like you guys.
All right, so just for clarification, Gold Cup regulations say a minimum of 23 on your roster and a maximum of 26. So Mauricio Pochettino could bring up to 26 players in this one. But the Gold Cup match day squads will have to be 23. So even if there are more than 23, there'll be a couple unhappy players who can't play game in and game out. But some of those, they could be for injury purposes. All right, let's get to the midfield. I'm curious. We were 3 out of 6 in our actual locks, our actual players that made it. If we get to the midfield, though, it's going to be – I'm kind of curious. So goalkeepers, we got those. We got Matt Turner, Zach Steffen. We locked those in. And there are 4. I assume we're going to shed one of the goalkeepers that are involved here. You got Matt Freese, Patrick Schulte, Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, but we nailed our roster locks there. Feeling good about that. Not a big surprise. But when we get to midfield, I'm kind of curious as to how we are going to do, and producer Des is going to rip that up. It's been a lot of information has gone through my frontal lobe prior to when we made these locks. We get inundated with information with the coaching course, so I think we're kind of in that space. But any big surprises here? Okay, here we go. We got some midfielder. Here we go. So Tanner Tessman and Yunus Musa not in the team. Tyler Adams and Johnny Cardoso are in. This is more of our central midfielders. I'm surprised. I'll raise my hand. I'm very surprised that Tanner Tessman is not in this team. I'm not that surprised that Yunus is not. Chuck, where are you on those two in particular?
Yeah, I think I'm really surprised Yunus Musa and Tanner Tessman. I'm going to go with both because remember, this is just to get into the camp. We're not even talking about starting or playing time. We're talking about just getting into the camp. You're telling me Yunus Musa is especially given the fact that Pochettino was raving about Yunus Musa, even when he wasn't playing at Milan, how good he is. I got to find him on the place in the team. Now, the last Nations League, Yunus Musa just didn't bring it. He was playing right back in that first game, which is not going to really help set you up for success. He's not a right back, and it takes away from his qualities. And then you just kind of look forward. I expected him to still come into this camp. Now, Tanner Tessman, the same thing. I think he did a good job at Lyon, but at the same time, he's still ahead of both these players are still ahead of some of these guys that have been called in. But ultimately, Johnny Cardoso and Tyler Adams were locks. Tessman and Musa, well, now you have something to start thinking about. What do I need to do to get ready so that I don't miss out on next summer?
So Big Tones, one of the things I want to discuss before we get into some other misses for us with regard to our locks. When the players didn't play well coming out of the Nations League, we had a discussion here, multiple discussions, stating that if players don't look like they're up for it or aren't excited about playing for the U.S. or whatever it is and are not giving their 100%, then we should leave those guys at home. Doesn't matter what their name is. And it looks like, and I know we're right on the heels of Tessman and Yunus, and I don't want to use them as the reasons why. I'm just saying in general, it looks like if you couldn't give your 100% here, then and couldn't commit in the way that Mauricio Pochettino wants, then he's going to call in the guys that are on the up and up and are going to be hungry for this opportunity. And so instead of seeing some names, we got a Sebastian Berhalter, right? We got Luca De La Torre getting brought back into the fold. You have Quinn Sullivan, who's done tremendous with the Philadelphia in this early part of the MLS season. And so you got guys like that are now probably going to really try to take this opportunity with both hands, very similar to what we saw with Diego Luna in the Nations League.
So just a bit of clarity, right, in the midfield. Yunus Musa, apparently he's got personal reasons, right? So it leads you to believe he would have been called in. I'm surprised, as you guys are, about Tanner Tessman. I got the sense that he, when I say he, Pochettino liked him through the Nations League. But I think you're right. I would imagine, Jimmy, that there were more conversations about, hey, coach, tired, long season, whatever. And Poch's like, well, I don't need those guys. Right. And Christian Pulisic is the one that obviously made the headlines, right? He's the headliner for clear reasons, right? He's your best player or whatever, second best player, however you want to put it. But yeah, this is why back in the day when Mauricio Pochettino talked about the dual recruits, if you remember the conversation, but I'm not going to beg anybody. I want people to wear the jersey, that whole conversation that he had. I was fine with it, man. You guys just went through the coaching course, right? So you just said you're in coaching mode, if you will, right? Like it's hard to get over. I've been through those weeks and it's hard to get over, just switch off from what you just learned. If I'm a player and I could coach Jimmy, I just had a long season. I know Gold Cup's coming up. You think I could get a rest for 2 weeks? Like what are you thinking as a coach? Like, and I'm curious, would your conversation 2 weeks ago before you went to the coaching course and your answer be different than after you went to the coaching course? Because you need guys all the time that are committed. And if we came out of Nations League with one overriding, hell, you and I were sat on the I think all three of us, or no, Charlie was calling the final after the Canada game. You and I forget, was it Benny Feilhaber? No, was it Bornstein? Somebody was on with us. I can't remember now. And we all had the same thing, man. We talked about desire, wanting to be there, fighting all the time, like things that we thought were missing in those moments. And those are hard things to question players on. Now you get a guy that says, okay, can I miss a little bit? Maybe come in later. Whatever the case is, as a coach, you're like, no, man, I need you committed to this thing.
Yeah, Chuck, I want to get your thoughts on this, but my initial thing is it gets back to the hunger, where you want a guy that's so eager and is so excited to come in and play. Now, obviously, you want your most talented players and players that have already proven themselves to feel that way. And obviously, coming off a long season, I don't want to discount any of that, right? I don't want to obviously create a caveat and say, well, it makes sense for Jedi, but it doesn't make sense for Christian, right? Once you kind of open up that as a possibility, then it should be fair for everybody. We've heard about coaches in the past that had double standards as a coach, and that's you lose your players very quickly if you're allowing one player to do something and another not to. So yeah, once that was kind of a message that was going to happen and he was open to that, then yeah, you try to find some players that are going to try to make the most of the opportunity as you look to broaden the player pool. It's really unfortunate though, given that this is our last significant amount of time as a team to be around each other. Like, could you have potentially said, hey, just be around the group for 2 weeks through the group stages, and then the knockout rounds, we can turn it up a notch, right? And get you back and going. I don't know.
I'm not with that, Jimmy. I think you're either in it to train and play.
I get it.
You're not
I'm just
going
trying
there
to see. I was just trying to explore a middle ground, Chuck. But keep going. I like
even middle ground. It's just that just wouldn't sit well with the group. Like, oh, these guys are here to support. We're gonna work our butt off to get into a semifinal and final, and then we're gonna sit and let these guys play. That it wouldn't work. So I think ideally, everyone's built different. Everyone comes into this, I think, national team picture and looks at it differently. They have different perspectives. For me, I could not imagine missing out on a summer tournament with the national team. I couldn't imagine, right? I could not imagine saying I need a rest. Like, I'll take my 2 weeks rest after the Gold Cup and be ready for preseason. But some people in this day and age, this new generation, it's like, I got to put my mentality aside for a second and say, I need a rest, both physically and mentally. And knowing what's coming in next summer. If this was, let's say this was a Confederations Cup, do you think these players are sitting out versus a Gold Cup? And I know it's, national team, it's the one last big tournament to win a trophy. But if you told me I'm going to play against the Spains of the world, I'm going to go play against Argentina in a big, meaningful Confederations Cup here in the States, it might be looked at differently, right? As opposed to, we're playing, Panamas, the Canadas, these type of teams, when you're like, you know what, at this stage, I need to take a break. And I know that they've given us trouble and we lost the last Nations League, but at the end of the day, I need to put myself first. And I think that's what we're seeing. I couldn't do that, but who are we to say, hey, put your mental fatigue to the side and suit up for the national team. It's just a different generation.
I agree with you. And then I just think it's more visible or more discussed, the topic of mental health in particular, but yeah. Previous, and I've shared this story before, but I'll do it again because I think it's in relation to what we're speaking about. At the end of 2007, the season, that was like a good year for me. Scored against Mexico and you got to play in Copa America and all these things and finished really strong with my MLS team. But that was also, I'm like 7 or 8 months into being a dad. And we had a colicky baby. For those that don't know, I'm going to generalize here, but just cries a lot. Don't know how to calm her down. And it just took a lot out of me personally, out of my marriage in particular. And that weighed on me. And so towards the end of the season, I realized that I just needed a break, just to rest, to not be on. And when I had the conversation with Bob Bradley about not going to the January camp, he was taken aback and he was at that point started questioning my commitment and probably my desire to want to play for him and for the team. And once that happened, I didn't get called back in for another 18 months. I did end up going to the camp. I should finish the story. And I played terribly. I just wasn't in a good frame of mind. I tried to push through it and I wasn't good. So I actually really have a lot of respect for the guys that can recognize that they have something going on. I know Tanner Tessman just had a new baby. Congratulations to him and his wife and his family. And maybe that factors into the equation a little bit, but there are some things that are sometimes outside of the game that do have a significant impact. And I wonder what my career would have looked like if Bob had been a little bit more understanding of my situation. Because I told him on that call that I would lay down on railroad tracks for him if he could just give me these couple weeks off so I could kind of reset. And that wasn't heard in the way that I'd hoped, and it impacted my career. And I didn't handle that very well. That's for another show.
and thanks for sharing that story. So to my point, so I ask you, knowing what you know, and you just go through this coaching course, someone calls you and says, "Hey, Coach Jimmy, I'm not feeling it right now for whatever reason. There's a million different reasons, right? My kid, excuse me, my kid is colicky. I can't sleep. It's affecting my marriage. Okay, whatever the story is, what do you say to that guy?" That's why when we were on, I don't know if this came out Tuesday or Thursday, whichever show it was that Benny and I were on. When I heard about Pulisic, people were up in arms. I mean, you saw the pundits, all our ex-teammates. I'm like, I don't really care, man. If you don't want to be with the national team for whatever reason, then the national team doesn't need you right now, right? My question would be, I think, Charlie, you said Confederations Cup. What, nobody was tired last year before Copa America, right?
Right.
No one come off a long season? That would be my question. As a fan, I understand how you feel, but I think from a coaching standpoint, Mauricio Pochettino, he some of this and I'm looking at the names to my right here, like just to refresh my memory. Some of these he's sending a message, and I think some guys he generally just needs to see to have in his database of guys that hey, can this guy help me in this moment? Can this guy help me in this position? So I think there's a mixture for me in this roster here. But with regards to guys missing, man, if I'm the coach, you call Jimmy and you're not 100% locked in.
Yeah, I'm not bringing you.
I don't know why you're useful to me.
I'm not bringing you. I think, and there's levels to it, right? From each player, from an individual candidate who's saying, hey, Pochettino, I need a break. I'm asking you, please, will you consider? Well, what have you done? Can I rely on you? What's your age? What's your impact? Christian Pulisic, yeah, you're playing at Milan. You had 11 goals, 11 assists in Serie A. The year before, 12 goals, 9 assists. You scored in the World Cup. You've done this. You've done this. Is it the end of the world? What's more beneficial? A player that's going to look at you and say, man, when I needed you to come through for me and I needed a break mentally, physically, you gave it to me. Now I'm so ready to fight for you. I'm ready to do whatever you need from me. And I'm better for the season versus coming in, maybe being at 75%, 80%, risking injury. You're bringing yourself down more mentally, more obviously physically. You come after that, you got a week. Milan's already in so much, this uncertainty, this level of uncertainty. You go there and it's just downhill. For me, I have no issues with that. Anthony Robinson, my man's given his leg to Fulham. He needs a break. Give it to him. The only issue when I'm thinking about it is for Mauricio Pochettino, has he figured out where he wants to use Christian Pulisic? Has he figured out, what's could he benefit more from spending time with them and seeing him on the training pitch and trying to implement different tactics with Christian, playing him on the right versus the left, sometimes moving him into the center as a dual 10 with someone else, just different ideas. That's what you're losing in situations like this.
One of the things that I'd already been doing as a coach, Tones, and Chuck was obviously in these meetings with me when we were in Belfast for this course, but that got validated when I was there, was one of their big points of leadership is you have to meet players where they are. And I believe that Mauricio Pochettino is probably doing that, right? Some players, you're right. He does have to send a message to some of them. And then to others, he's probably understanding the situation and where they are after a long season and making choices accordingly. And in some ways, the silver lining is he gets to see more of the player pool and to figure out if there's other players that maybe he can trust in certain situations. So ultimately, yes, it's disappointing on some levels because we want to have this group together, the core together as much as possible. But in other ways, it could be a good opportunity for some of our other guys to take advantage of. All right, we're going to take our first break. I'll call what you want. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation because this is a good one. Don't go anywhere.
UEFA Conference League final on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount Plus.
All right, welcome back in to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy alongside Tony and Charlie. I'm currently in the same place that Charlie usually is. I'm here in Stamford, Connecticut at the Golazo Network studios. Just a little morning footy. This morning, that was a lot of fun, and I get to be on camera, I think, with you, Chuck, for the Champions League final here on Saturday. Should be a lot of fun as well. So come over and join us on the Golazo Network when that happens. But let's get to a quote. Mauricio Pochettino said this: if you arrive to the camp and you want to spend a nice time, play golf, go for a dinner, visit my family, visit my friend, is that the culture that we want to create? No, no, no. He put 5 no's here. No, 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 no. I could just see him wagging his finger while he says this. What we want to do is go to the national team, arrive and be focused, and spend all my focus and energy on the national team because we need to create this culture about winning, and we need to chase our aim. If we want to be good in 1 year's time, we need to think that today is the most important day because we need to build from today our way to arrive. Thoughts on that, Chuck?
Well, I think Mauricio Pochettino has a point in just saying, this is the focus. We got to move as a group. No distractions. You put the national team first and we're all in, which should be expected. I mean, this is really important tournament for Mauricio Pochettino for this camp. He gets the opportunity, and this is with every national team. When one guy asks for a rest or when one guy is injured that is important to the squad, or maybe he's a fringe player and new guys come in, it's an opportunity for them to impress Pochettino, to get into the team. So ultimately, it comes a new chance for someone to really impress Pochettino and his staff, to say, hey, this kid has a future. We're gonna keep bringing him in because of what we've seen from him. So again, 1 year out from a World Cup, everyone has to be locked in. This is the buildup. You want the opportunity to represent your country on home soil in a World Cup that usually comes once in a lifetime. So, I mean, what else could you want? He's making a clear statement for everybody to understand just how locked in you have to be.
That was a really long quote, Big Tones, when he could have just said, 1 year out, no more effing around. Yeah. Right? I mean, he could have just got right to it.
Yeah.
It's go time. It's time to hit the switch. All right. I got an idea of my team. Let's get it going now.
I think we saw the Nations League. I think he's frustrated right now. I really think he is, man. And he's frustrated with results. He's frustrated with the group. He's missing some players. And I think he thought after Nations League, he'd have a full complement of players here. Some of these are his decisions. Some are not. And he has that quote. I don't think it's so much about golf or seeing your family or any of the other things, nice dinner, whatever, because they all do that stuff, right? I think it's more like Charlie said, it's just the focus. This is it, man. We're a year away from the tournament. I'm just trying to think of a silver lining in this whole thing. And maybe I'm forming one in my head. We always talk about seeing guys in competitions, but we're always talking about these guys like a Luna or Ajiman or any of these guys. This is an opportunity because more often than not, when we get to these competitions, we get the first team. We don't get to see the guys that are going to make up the rest of the 26 in a real competition. So maybe, just maybe, there's an opportunity for Pochettino to have a better sample size because it is a competition, because it is over an extended period of time. This is going to be, hopefully they're together for a month, right? When this is all said and done. So he'll get to see guys that he maybe wouldn't have with a full team in a competition. And again, I'm looking for a silver lining in this whole thing because I personally would have loved to have seen every single player here for Pochettino to get that opportunity one more time.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in agreement with that. Let's get into our forwards, though, for roster locks, just to finish up that part of the conversation. We had 6 players that we had locked in: Pulisic, Tillman, Luna, Balogun, Haji Wright, Josh Sargent. And Chuck, you and I missed out on Josh Sargent, who apparently got left out for footballing reasons. Does that signal the end of his national team career? Because that's got to hurt. And then Christian, obviously, is out in this one, who needs some rest and to recover from a long season. But we got Tillman, Luna, Balogun, and Haji Wright. Obviously, a big tournament for those 4 in particular. I don't know which side you want to focus on. But give us some of your thoughts, actually, as our resident number 9 on Josh Sargent. Are you surprised on that?
I'm a little surprised he's not included into the camp, being in the best 11 for the championship. Just when you're looking at his full body of work throughout the season, but I'm not surprised given what we saw from him in Nations League. You had your opportunity to impress Pochettino in a major competition, and I'm sure Pochettino feels a little bit let down by his performances. So in that same breath, you say, who's next up? Haji Wright didn't get that opportunity, so now you're bringing Haji Wright into the camp. Brian White's been scoring goals at will in MLS, so you say, I'm going with the guy who's in the best form in the league. Patrick Gajiman is as up and down as his performances have been with Charlotte. He's still delivered when he's played under Mauricio Pochettino with the U.S. Women's National Team. So Damian Downs is the one that's the unknown, right? He's a starting striker in the second Bundesliga for Cologne. So if you're looking at that, you say, well, here's an opportunity for all these players to come in, and Balogun is probably going to be the starting striker next summer. If not, if Ricardo Pepi makes a miraculous comeback and is able to get match fit, because obviously he's still going to be in the conversation come next summer. But it looks like Balogun of this group, he's the most technical player of this group. He is ultimately the best goal scorer in this group. So I'm not surprised when I think about what have you done for me lately, and Josh Sargent not being included here.
Yeah, there's a good quote there or a comment, I should say, from Spider Zlatan, which is a great name. It says Sargent's equity ran out, right? How much rope are you going to give a guy if he can't end up performing for you? And obviously he hasn't scored for the national team in quite some time. I think him and Chuck scored in the same year for the national team. That's how long it's been for Sargent to find the back of the net. That was rough. That's rough on him. All right, let's get into the trust, though, that we're seeing from Mauricio Pochettino of MLS players. 16 MLS players are included in this group. And I guess the big question is, well, I should say that, let me start here, Big Tones. If Greg Berhalter had named this team, I'm
Lord.
1,000% sure the internet would have melted, right? It just would have melted. We no longer would have had an internet. Pitchforks would have been out. It would have been crazy. Pochettino does it, and his credibility, obviously, as a manager is a little bit different than Greg's, but still, 16 out of 27 is quite a large number. So you have that part of it. But then I guess the next part of the question is he rewarding the right guys in MLS? I would say for the most part, yes, but I know Jack McGlynn maybe hasn't lit it up for Houston, but he clearly likes Jack McGlynn. That's one example, but I'm going to let you take it.
Who else is the other example in your mind?
Of what? Of
MLS guys who are not in this camp that you think should have been?
Well, in terms of
Should
form,
have been or aren't lighting it up. Which one?
I would say not lighting it up. Is like Tim Ream hasn't been good for me for Charlotte this season overall.
But
does he deserve to be there because of his history? Yeah, of course you can make a big. He's a leader and he'll lead by example and good solid player. But I'm thrilled with DeJuan Jones. Right, he was in the wilderness at Columbus Crew, and now with San Jose, he's found another level, and we're back to the level we know he's capable of, and with still room to grow. So I like that he's involved. That would be, one I'm excited about.
But who in MLS has done well that isn't called in?
Didn't get called in?
I'm looking at trying to figure out one.
Because I don't think he missed anyone.
Brian Gutierrez, but he's a fringe player either, no matter how you slice it. Yeah, that's pretty much that from MLS. Those are the ones I can think of.
I don't think he missed a single person.
Well, no, I mean, he's got plenty of numbers there, so maybe I didn't phrase that right. I guess it's more of. Are you surprised to see some of these guys? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the right way to get into.
Are you talking about in terms of, okay, could they have called a Paxton Aronson instead?
Yes, that's where I'd like to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there are maybe some fringe players in Europe who probably could have gotten a look over, or like a Gianluca Busio not getting called in.
Busio, Aronson, especially if you're giving looks to Sebastian Berhalter with his first time call up, who's been good. I don't want to take anything away from that, but so those other guys.
What about Aiden Morris? Are you surprised not to see him?
Yes, but at least he's been given a look.
Yeah.
Right. And he's been seen. Has Busio been at a camp? I feel like he has.
Yeah, he has. And he wasn't involved they were in the relegation battle, obviously get relegated. They played Juve on the weekend, and he wasn't involved at all. Not in the game, not on the roster. I wonder if there's something going on, with him. We couldn't find any Sunday. We couldn't get any information on him. I was in studio, obviously covering that, and we had no information on Busio at all. And there weren't any reports that at least on Sunday that we could find. The one can I tell you, are you getting to who you're most excited about yet or no?
No, go for it. Yeah, let's just start there. Let's go.
This Alex Freeman from Orlando, man. I told you a couple weeks ago, I've had 3 Orlando games in the last 6 weeks. And I am so impressed. I don't know that he's going to make a World Cup roster. He's still young. But when you talk about tools, this dude's got every tool in the shed, man. And of course he comes from he's the son of a NFL Super Bowl winning Antonio Freeman. I watch him on the weekend. I'm so happy to see him. I hope he gets a chance. Obviously, Serginho Dest is the guy, right? He's the guy until he's not the guy in this team. But when you talk about someone who's got tools, I'm going to look out for Freeman, and I'm hoping he gets a look by Pochettino. And I imagine he should, right, with a minimum of 3 games in this thing.
Yeah, what do you think, Chuck? Who are you the most excited about? Let's say outside of Alex Freeman, if you want to touch upon him, but if there's anybody else that jumps out at you.
Again, Diego Luna. I think the more times we see Diego Luna in that number 10 shirt, I think it's, in that number 10 position, I think the better it is for him, the better it is for Pochettino. I'm looking forward to seeing where he's continued to improve, after his last performance.
All right. I like that one. I think Quinn Sullivan is one I'm interested in as well. Obviously his little brother gets a lot of the hype given that he's signed by Man City and super exciting young player, but it's been nice to see Quinn emerge on his own and 2 goals and 6 assists so far this season with Philadelphia Union. And there's something about his game where he's a connector, right? He's looking to make that final pass, has demonstrated that he can, and he can get on the end of stuff as well. So I hope all these guys get some meaningful minutes to really showcase what they're capable of. And you have to prove that in practice as well. So yeah, I'm excited about him. See how Sebastian Berhalter can do as well. Miles Robinson getting it from a center back perspective, getting back into the fold, I think is important for him, right? And we could argue he got in over Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty. And those guys obviously could make a case for why they deserve to be included in not only these 2 upcoming friendlies, but for the Gold Cup as well. So I was a little bit surprised to see Miles Robinson back in the fold, but it's clear that Mauricio Pochettino and his staff are doing homework on MLS and really trying to, look under every rock. I know not leave any stone unturned to try to find some talent and to identify some players that fit into the puzzle, right? Because Big Tones, you know this, you've played in multiple World Cups. It's about building a puzzle to be as efficient and strong as you can as a team. And not necessarily it's the most talented guys. It's what makes the team the strongest.
Yeah, I mean that's always the case. That's always the challenge for managers, and you guys know you've probably everyone has a different term. There's piano players and piano carriers, right? Like someone's got to get the piano to the place, and you have to have those guys on your team. It can't be all superstars, and we see this all around the world, just about every major tournament where there's decisions by managers that you scratch your head. It doesn't matter what country you support, what country you're looking at. And you're like, why did that guy, make a roster? And all of a sudden he becomes an important piece to the puzzle, right? Because the manager just felt that that's what they needed at the time. You go back to let's say 2002 team, like a Pablo Mastroeni type guy, a Carlos Llamosa type guy, where people probably like, there's better center backs, but Bruce knew exactly what he was looking for, both on and off the field. And then those two guys became so important to the team. And there might have been other guys you would have picked ahead of them. So that's the challenge of building a team. Look, I'm going to go with what I said until I see wrong. And having spoken to Mauricio Pochettino, and you get sort of feelings, when you talk to guys, just based on, you try not to get lost in translation with some of this stuff, but I don't think he really cares. I'm going to say it again, where you come from. I just don't think he cares. I think he's just looking at everything objectively, and he's saying, this is a soccer player. I don't care where he plays. Does this guy fit what I'm trying to do? Period. Yeah.
There's something really refreshing about that I appreciate. So, Chuck, let's leave out all the names. We're looking at the roster now, all 27 names, okay?
Yeah.
So pull that up if you need to get a refresher.
I got it.
Of all we know the obvious narrative around the first timers or guys that haven't been back in anymore. They have to play well, right, to be seriously considered.
Yes.
But when we start thinking about the names that we are a little bit more familiar with, we see more regularly, who do you think of that group? Do you think really needs to put their stamp on things to maybe not necessarily, they probably will make the World Cup team, but to really become
Malik Tillman, to answer your question.
Well, can he keep that form up from PSV? That's what we all want to know.
Well, the whole thing is he's been brilliant for PSV, Champions League, Eredivisie. When he's went to Rangers on loan, when we had guys at our coaching course in Northern Ireland, a bunch of Rangers former players, or one Rangers former player, a bunch of Rangers fans, and they said Malik Tillman was incredible. He was sensational. Greg Stewart, who played with Malik, he said he was phenomenal. So we've seen him impress and deliver in Europe, but when he's come to the national team, it just hasn't clicked. And so, I spoke to Ernie Stewart and I said, Ernie, what's his ceiling? What do you, he said, you have to just understand him. You have to understand, he doesn't have this massive personality. He's not the most outspoken person. But he is a brilliant player. And just when you understand him, then you're going to get the most out of him. So I found that to be an interesting statement. Can Pochettino get the most out of him? So that's the one player we've seen do some incredible things. I mean, that goal he scored in Champions League against, I think it was Shakhtar Donetsk. You just think we need to see more of that. So if we can have a player who can strike from distance and play those killer balls between the lines, that's what we've been missing. So can he be that player? So I'm really looking forward to seeing him play and hopefully Mauricio Pochettino, figuring out a way to unlock his skills.
I like that choice a lot. I'm not even going to debate it. A couple other players, though, that I'm interested in seeing how they perform coming back into the fold: Brendan Aronson, Luca De La Torre, Miles Robinson. So just three names that have performed in the past. Can they do it again and with the trust and earn the trust, I should say, of Mauricio Pochettino? Big Tones, I'm going to put you on the spot for the goalkeeper situation. We obviously have two friendlies, and then we have the Gold Cup. We'll probably lose one of those goalkeepers leading into the summer tournament. Putting your Coach Tony hat on, how are you managing the minutes, and who are you giving those minutes to, given that our de facto number one, with air quotes over it, is Matt Turner, and him not getting any real significant minutes in 2025?
Well, I think if you stick with the theory that Pochettino is in saying, we're turning over a new leaf right now, that things have to change, that you got to be playing at your club. And he had some comments about Matt Turner saying that he spoke to him about it, about the situation. You got to give minutes to somebody that you haven't seen. And I would think Zach Steffen, Schulte, and Freeze. I mean, whoever performs better in camp. you give him an opportunity. He has seen Zach Steff and he has seen Patrick Schulte in camp. I don't think Matt Freese has been in camp with Pochettino. So I think you got to look at those guys. I was surprised, and we said on air the Canada game that we saw Matt Turner again in goal. It might have been, hey, you took a lot of heat for the goal we gave up against Panama. You're my guy right now, right? Like, I'm going to stick by you, and I'm not going to bury you because, people think you didn't make a play on a goal, right? So maybe there was a little bit of that, but I had said regardless, you lose that first game, you got to see somebody else. So yeah, he has an idea. So Matt Freese was part of January camp, but there's a saying here, so I didn't remember that. I would think you got, if you ask me for one, Jimmy, right now, I think you give Zach Steffen an opportunity, because I thought we all were in agreement going in the Nations League that there was a chance for him to get some minutes there.
All right, so first friendly game, you're going with Zach Steffen.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Think about it. Like, is there anything Matt Turner's going to tell you in one of those first two games? Maybe you give Matt Turner one game for sure. You don't want to freeze him out of this thing. But like, what can he learn from Matt Turner, or what can they learn as a staff from Matt Turner, Tony Jimenez, the goalkeeper coach, that they don't already know, right? What they need from Matt Turner is that he finds a club where, if he's your guy, you need him to be sharp in June of 2026. That's what you need if he's your guy. But for right now, if he plays that game, and if he plays well, or if he makes mistakes, like, what are you learning from that? For me, nothing. Like, I know who Matt Turner is. What I need from Matt Turner, and I think what we all need from Matt Turner, is that he's just the sharpest version of Matt Turner he can be in June of 2026.
Yeah, I guess in some ways, and this is kind of getting into the coaching course again, is you want to almost reverse engineer where every player is at come June 2026. And so you create these individual player plans, right, to individual development plans, to IDPs, as they say, to make that work. It might feel like with some, you don't need to do that, but it would be an interesting exercise to say, hey, we need you. And I love that you brought that up. Like, we need you to be at peak form here. And then when you start to see it through the lens of every individual player, that becomes pretty interesting. Obviously, the basic stuff is you need to be playing regularly, but there's also, once you're doing that, then it becomes the next level of making sure that you're as sharp as you possibly can be, because you can be on a shit team, and that's necessarily helping your cause either. You can ask Ethan Horvath how that's going for him. All right, we're going to take our next and last break. A call what you want. When we come back, we'll talk about some Americans abroad performances, and we have a Europa Conference League final to discuss, as well as Johnny Cardoso takes on Chelsea on Wednesday. That should be a lot of fun. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back into your favorite Average to Goodness. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Big Tones and Chuck Wagon, Charlie Davies. And we got to get into Americans abroad. We got some news and notes about some performances from our player pool. We're going to start, though, with a friend of the show, Mal Corbos, who and his American teammate, Isaiah Young, representing Arminia Bielefeld. They just got promoted from the third Bundesliga to the second, so they had that going for them. They took down 4 Bundesliga teams on their way to the DFB Pokal final. And then against Stuttgart, they were down 3-0 after 30 minutes, eventually losing 4-2. In fairness to them, if there's any unfairnesses here to say, they completely gave that game away. There were 3 mistakes that they got punished on. And I think that's what happens when you play against teams of a certain caliber or a couple notches above you. If any slight mistakes are going to be hitting the back of the net. So Arminia Bielefeld falls short, but they were the first team in the history of the competition, the first third division team to ever score in a DFB Pokal final. So there's still a lot to be proud of, and obviously they got promoted, so congratulations to them. But they were so close, Chuck, to making significant history, and after 30 minutes it was done.
Yeah,
hurts.
all you can say is congratulations on an incredible run, right? Because the odds were stacked against them with a Stuttgart side that we're not going to take them lightly in a final. It's a cup
100%.
final, and Stuttgart was far
Excellent.
superior all over the pitch. They came in with the right mentality. They weren't going to sit back. They knew kind of exactly how they played. So with that expectation and with everyone bringing their A game, it was always going to be a really uphill battle. There weren't going to be any surprises for Stuttgart.
No, for sure. They ran into a buzzsaw, and you're right. Stuttgart was up for it. Dennis Undav up top is excellent. What a player.
Mm-hmm.
Liga MX, Alex Sendejas and Club America lost 2-0 versus Toluca. So no 4-peat for the most successful team in Liga MX history. Serie A, Juventus with a big 3-2 win away from home. Igor Tudor comes in for Thiago Motta and does what needs to be done to make sure they finish in the top 4 and secure Champions League football for Juve moving forward. Though it looks like Antonio Conte might be leaving Napoli, where he just won the Scudetto, and going to the old lady and reuniting with his number one love, from what I understand. Gianluca Busio's Venezia gets relegated. He did not dress in this particular game, but we're going to throw it over to our Serie A expert here, Tony Meola, and resident Milan fan. Big Tones, any final thoughts on Serie A this season from you and from our Americans in particular?
Final thoughts. Amazing what Antonio Conte did with Napoli. You mentioned Juventus. I had them in my top 4 this season, and McKennie came off the bench late in that game. Timothy Weah came off the bench.
Were you surprised they didn't start? Because I was a little disappointed that in the biggest games of the season.
Yeah, there were a couple guys. Yeah, Vlahovic didn't start, and McKennie, where there were 2 that I was surprised. He went with more mobile, if you will, a roster. But I'm going to say this before Antonio Conte. I'm going to say before Antonio Conte signs with Juve. I picked Juve already next year to win the Scudetto. So I'm saying it before Antonio Conte signs, if he signs. And I said this to the guys in the studio. I think Weston McKennie, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen with Timothy Weah. I wonder if he's going to look for somewhere he can get more playing time. There were periods where he was the man, and there were periods where he wasn't the guy. So that'll be interesting to watch him.
Do you think Conte would be a good fit for Wes and Tim?
I think
Wes could be a Scott McTominay, right?
I think they would be a good fit for Conte, right? Workhorses, the demands of the way he wants to play the game. This whole thing of leaving Napoli after 1 year, clearly him and De Laurentiis don't like each other. You could tell after they could hardly hug each other after they just won their only 4th Scudetto ever. But I think Weah and Conte, if it does happen, they would be Antonio Conte type players with regards to look what he did with Napoli. He took a bunch of guys that there's some players in there, but he's not afraid to get rid of an Osimhen or a Kvaratskhelia, like the big names, kind of what we're talking about with our national team, right? And put a team together. I mean, if you just listed rosters in Serie A, that's not the roster you would have picked. But I think, to your point, those 2 guys would love. Antonio Conte would love those 2 guys. Would they love playing for him? I don't know. You're going to be
that's a different conversation.
24 hours a day. That's a different conversation, and we'll find out. But I think they're cut. I think it would be really good for them.
All right, now Chuck, before we get into the Europa Conference League final, we did an exercise today on Morning Footy, giving grades for certain players in the national team player pool, and I wanted to get your grade for Yunus Musa. He had 0 goals and 2 assists, which, okay, he's not in there to score goals or we'd like to see him do more of that on that side of the ball, but not always his role. In 40 appearances in all competitions. And before I reveal what I gave him for the season, I want to know what both of yours are. But Chuck, I'm going to let you go first here on what kind of grade would you give Yunus Musa, A to F? And then I'll eventually reveal what I said.
A to F. At Milan, he played 40 matches in all
competitions. Yeah. So no national team. It's just
at Milan based. Okay.
Or I can go first if you want to sit with it. I said C-, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I I loved, and the C kind of comes into obviously the team not performing well.
That's average, by the way. So you know that, like, it's just
yeah. I gave a C minus though. The minus is where I'm a little disappointed. Okay, so the C is like he got trusted by 2 different managers. 40 appearances in all competitions is a lot. So clearly he's doing something that demonstrates that he's capable and he's a contributing member of the team. It's hard to extract the recency bias of him not performing well towards the end of the season. So I get that, but I wanted to at least acknowledge that it's not like he only played 5 games, right? Like he Gio-Reyna'd it and didn't really play all that much at all. The minus for me on the C minus is that it just felt like he plateaued this season. Mind you, he's only 22 years old, and there's going to be ups and downs throughout your career. And I just feel like he's on a little bit of a down. And now I'm hopeful that he's got great people around him to make sure that he minimizes that down and starts to maximize going back up. And I think that he will, because he's got too much talent not to. But I just thought overall,
I think you're a little too.
I want more from him. I want more.
I think you're a little too generous with the C minus.
Ooh, okay. Well, tell me your grade then.
I would have given him a D on the season.
Oh man. Chuck doesn't suffer any fools. Everybody.
No, Yunus Musa, we know is one of the most technically gifted players to ever come into the national team. He's just a brilliant dribbler and great anticipation. Where you kind of want more from him is the goal production side, whether it's assists or creating goals or scoring goals. You just feel like you want a little bit more from him in the attacking third. But I just don't think he necessarily settled into any one position. At Milan, he was used as kind of a utility player because
is that his fault though? Or is that, I mean, I just want to make sure we're seeing kind of the full picture, because a coach would be like, hey, could you play some 8 for us? We got somebody hurt. Could you play a little 8? Or, hey, by the way, this Emerson guy, not very good. Can you play out? Can you play out wide?
Well, it goes on both, right? It's not just the coach, it's not just the player. So, if a coach is going to all of a sudden play me at right back or right wing or right center back just to get me on the field, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But is that my strength? Is that where I'm the most comfortable? Playing Yunus Musa at right back with the national team and Pochettino. I know we're only talking about club. Is that a good thing? No.
Right.
Playing Neymar at right back or left back or Messi just because they're so good. Is that a good thing? No, I don't think so. So ultimately, I think where he needs to improve is in those areas, which will prevent him from being used as a utility player. We know just how good he is. And if you're playing with 3 in the midfield, you have the flexibility of playing DM, defensive midfielder versus 8 versus 10. You can get away with moving guys around in that because you're central and you're a midfielder, and you can finagle something when you're talking about roles. But ultimately, he just didn't deliver. He wasn't consistent this year, and he made some massive mistakes.
Yes, he did.
And so,
towards the end.
So I think with that, we're talking about C is average. He wasn't average. He was just below average this season. So the positives are he's young, and there's a lot more to play for, especially in a year out from the World Cup.
Big Tones, we know you love ratings and rankings and grades. I say C minus. Chuck says D. Where are you on Yunus?
I lean more to Chuck, and you mentioned the recency bias. I've been telling you for 4 or 5 months now, Yunus Musa has not been good for Milan. The 41 games, I think, in a lot of ways are deceiving. Because there were moments where there were multiple injuries. That's part of the reason why he played in multiple positions on the field. But to your point about, you said something about we don't expect goals and assists from him. I think in general, if you're a midfielder or you're a wide player, you have to be involved in goals and assists. And he plays quite a bit. And then we say, okay, he's a dribbler, right? Which in general means you dribble somebody to get into dangerous spots to provide assists, right, to somebody. And if not, you're just dribbling to dribble, right? And then nothing comes of it in the end. But I'm a D in this case, and I think if you asked Yunus Musa to do the same for himself, he probably would say the same thing, in my opinion. The multiple positions thing, I'm fine with that because we can't praise Weston McKennie for being so great and being so valuable to a team because he plays multiple positions. And then when it's Yunus Musa, we give him a pass because, that's not his position for me. I just think you're asked. I know it's not easy, but I think you're asked to do something, you do it. And the age thing, I get he's young, but you didn't ask us to grade him on age. You just said grade him. Grade him on,
no.
Grade him on the season.
And I think your point about the attacking thing and where I'm disappointed in him, and I'm sure he's disappointed too, is he found himself in some really good positions this season and just either couldn't score or the final pass was lacking to unlock an opportunity for somebody else. And that's where he needs to improve, I feel like, to really take those big next steps in his career. All right, we could go on forever on him, and I could name other players. We could do grades. Maybe we'll save a few maybe for the next show.
What were the other person's grades? Who else gave a grade for?
Nico Contour did B- initially, a B-. Yeah, and then Michael Lahoud had a D. He was with you guys. So
Nico gave above average.
He did, but then he changed it. Ivis is correcting me in the chat. He started with a B-, Ivis. I said C-, and then he ended up changing it after hearing the rhetoric and opinions of me and Michael Lahoud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, go back and watch it. They replay the show later.
Good thing I wasn't at the desk today. I just tell you
Did
that.
Pulisic get graded?
Yes, I gave him an A because
it's hard not to.
Yeah, just because of his goal contributions and how much responsibility he took on to show up when maybe some of his other teammates weren't, and led the team in goals, second in assists. Yeah, I mean, obviously you leave the national team stuff out of it when you're rating, but I thought it was an A. One thing too that this kind of goes for all the guys over there, but I think Christian's carrying the torch maybe the most, is that he has normalized or helping normalize that Americans can play on your team now and be trusted, and especially on the attacking side of the ball. Goalkeepers, that's always been okay based on what you did, Tony, and all the other goalkeepers in your generation, kind of paving the way, and you've seen Tim Howard continuing that and so on. We had some defenders that could go out there and do the job, but like attacking players is different. To be trusted in that way is different, and you have to consistently be good. And I think that Christian's done an excellent job of, you got an American in your team. It's not that big of a deal anymore, but 15, 20 years ago, it'd be like, minds would be blown. So fair play to Christian, but to everybody that's over there that's working hard to change that stereotype. All right, I don't want to
that whole thing. They've embraced that. The radio announcer, when he scores, he chants USA. Like they've gone overboard to embrace the fact that he's American and he's come there to play. They love him, man.
Yeah. Actually, now that we're talking about Christian, make sure you catch episodes 5 and 6 of the Pulisic docu-series. It's streaming now on Paramount Plus. Apparently, there's going to be 9 in total, and I'm very curious as to if filming has stopped and they just need to edit those and get them posted, or if we can.
No, it has not stopped. Filming has not stopped, Jim. I can confirm.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm curious to see if they're going to get any Gold Cup fallout or not being on this roster. I think it would be nice to see how he reacts to some negativity. He doesn't get that type of negativity from our fan base very often. So I'm kind of curious how that will look and how he works through that. I know it's not always easy.
Real quick, I can't let you guys go, man. We plugged you guys being in Ireland all week last week doing your beat. You got to tell the listeners something about your experience, man.
Yeah, it was fun. So we had basically 2 big things that we had to do in front of the group. One was you lead a session, right? Mine was attacking in wide areas, and Chuck really liked my 15 minutes that I put together. I'd like to say that the enjoyment level of all the other guys that were part of it, they really liked mine. I didn't necessarily tick all the boxes for the evaluators because I got caught up in more in the how. Like, how are we going to get the ball out wide as opposed to the ball's out wide? How are we solving the problems?
Yeah.
But overall, I felt like I was pretty well received. And then
you got to be minus, Tony, for that.
Maybe a C-. I could be the
Yunus
Musa of the group. Yunus Musa of the group. And then we did a match analysis presentation, and I did really well on that. Both Chuck and I did really well.
Green dots all around. That's
green dots all around for that. But yeah, we had Victor Wanyama, who played for Tottenham. He played in the league in Montreal for a while. Vito Manone was in there for some recognizable
Yeah, I
names.
saw him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then all the local Irish guys and some that had played, like Greg Stewart that played for Rangers, and a couple guys that had played in the Premier League or got promoted to the Premier League and got their chance. You get to hear their stories, and
Keeper
was a lot of fun.
Stockdale.
Did you stand
Stockdale
up and
who played
introduce
with,
yourself in the beginning? Did
with
you have to
Clint
do the whole
and
stand
Eddie?
up and present yourself at the beginning? No.
No.
Oh, yeah. I was
No.
going to see what you said about yourself, but anyway. What
Well,
about you, Chuck?
I lean on my jokes. Favorite former U.S. men's national team defender is usually
Yeah.
what I go. But it was a cool experience. And Chuck and I really left that going, this is awesome. This is a perfect course for where we are in our kind of thought process and our coaching journey. And we look forward to doing more.
That's
but Chuck, what were your
awesome, man.
big takeaways?
Yeah, I similar to you, the group was incredible. Everyone was open-minded. There were no egos. Everyone wanted to learn and ask questions. I think that's the biggest thing from it was we have an idea. What's our ideal way of playing, our style? Are we high pressing? Are we attacking? Do we want to keep possession? Do we want to tire out teams? Do we want flair? And either way, it's always, well, how are you going to do that? What are you going to do when a team does this? Or how are you going to play when a team does this? Or what's plan B if your player gets injured? You're the most magical player that you have on your squad with the ball at his feet. If he's not there, do you have to change your style? So a lot of those questions, but ultimately I had to, my demonstration was building out from the back. So it
should have been the opposite. I should have had that. Chuck should have
had
that.
I had my back four with two midfielders, and then with playing against a press. And we had to find the way we broke it is we had to dribble out through some cones like a gate. And so that was fun to do that with the group, and I added defenders.
Chuck was
players.
the first person to do his, so that added pressure. So fair play to Chuck. He was excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Nice.
And they loved it. So I got a good grade, and then I did my match analysis on Real Madrid Arsenal, the defenders mentality for the second leg at the Bernabeu. So the tactics that Mikel Arteta kind of implied or implored with his group was just phenomenal. So breaking that down, and we had a great night. We got to watch Tottenham United at a local bar in Belfast with the group. And
well, the night must have been great because the game wasn't.
Yeah, the game was terrible.
We had to make up for it. Yeah.
We went to a piano bar, and it was just a great group. Everyone's singing and dancing and loving to be there. So it was a fantastic experience, and looking forward to going back next summer.
You guys, man. That's
for
awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Big Tones.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
No, it was fun. We also were around some of the people that were in the A Pro, and one of the coaches actually was with Tottenham. So he had just won the Europa League, and then the next day showed up to the course to finish out his thing. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting the people you get to network with and to talk the game with, and you end up knowing, especially for the players or the guys in our course, you know, we already have a group chat. You know, we're gonna be friends for life at this point because you're kind of sharing this experience together, which should be a lot of fun.
Cool,
all right,
man.
all right. Because I already said we're gonna do it, let's do a quick preview of the Europa Conference League. We got Johnny in a final. First time that Real Betis has been in a final before, major European final. Manuel Pellegrini leading the charge, a 71-year-old Chilean manager, ton of experience, won the Copa del Rey with the club in 21-22 and won the Premier League with Man City back in the day, and has been excellent at resurrecting some players. Anthony, Manchester United's loanee, has been a revelation, 9 goals and 5 assists since making the move. Isco has been excellent for him, El Capitan of the club. And Johnny has obviously flourished, so much so that Atletico Madrid is now looking at Johnny. Obviously, Tottenham has a first right, I think, of signing him because of the Giovanni Lo Celso deal to get Lo Celso over from Tottenham. What's interesting is that Betis is in a bit of a financial turmoil, so they want to keep Anthony, but he's going to be expensive. So it could be Johnny looking to get sold to try to figure out a way to financial fair play or and then also to make some room to sign some players. So we could see him on the move, and obviously there's some interest for some big clubs. It's been really cool to see how much he's evolved. And Tony, I'll come to you. I mean, we got a player here who we talked Tyler Adams. We've given Tanner Tessman his deserved shine, but Johnny could really start to be a guy that we need to talk about more regularly in our starting 11 for the U.S. as we head into the World Cup.
You nailed it, Jimmy. I mean, if you're going to play with two central midfielders, I think we kind of all agree that Tyler Adams is a guy that's going to be in there. But Johnny Cardoso, man, he's his trajectory right now. I think he's the other guy. And the wrinkle is, depending on where you want to play Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa's been the guy in the middle of the field. You mentioned Tessman. I think in that particular position, he surpasses everybody. And I'd be really, really surprised if we don't see him through this Gold Cup. Really is one of those guys, depending on fitness, of course, that will play every minute if he's available for every minute.
All right, that game is going to be on Paramount Plus tomorrow. We'll be previewing it more meaningfully on Morning Footy tomorrow, and obviously there'll be a proper preview show. Chuck, do they have any chance, though, against a Chelsea team that have been pretty good over the last month, whereas Betis haven't won in their last 5. Now 4 of those have been draws. But Chelsea have needed to get results to get into the Champions League. They've done that. They've won 5 out of their last 6. And it looks like Enzo Maresca is hungry to finish the season, the manager of Chelsea, with the trophy.
Yeah, well, I think it takes a lot of the pressure off Chelsea because they have qualified for the Champions League. So you look in this competition and they've kind of stumbled. They haven't played that well, actually, if I'm thinking about some of the matches that they've had on the way to the Conference League final. I haven't been all that impressed. And they have done a pretty good job of rotating because they're trying to, in the end, make sure that they were going to be playing in Champions League. Because like the U Gordon game at home where they won 1-0, you're thinking, is that enough?
Right.
So Real Betis 100% have a chance in this game, without a doubt. And Anthony has been sensational. 4 goals, 3 assists in his what?
It's gonna be a good game.
8 matches with the club. So
yeah,
in this competition. So yeah, it's gonna be a crazy game. I could see Real Betis really just trying to keep it close, and Isco is magical in the midfield. If they get a set piece, Anthony scored a brilliant free kick against Fiorentina, against David De Gea, might I add, who also had kind of like a renaissance year for himself. So I think this is going to be a great game. I think both teams are going to attack. There'll be some open play in the wings, in the wide areas. I think probably Real Betis will be a little bit more direct. And I'll be at the desk. So tune in tomorrow. Paramount Plus.
Tomorrow. One fun fact before we let everybody go: Manuel Pellegrini had Enzo Maresca, the manager of Chelsea, as a player when they were at Malaga together for 2 years. And then I didn't know this either until I started doing some research. Enzo Maresca was an assistant for Pellegrini at West Ham for 2 years. So these two know each other very, very well, which I think adds to the intrigue. So this should be a great game on Paramount Plus tomorrow. Chuck's going to be on the desk. That should be awesome as well. All right, that's it. We're calling it a show. A little bit longer than usual, but we had a lot to discuss. We hadn't seen each other in a while. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you again on Thursday. That'll be 10 a.m. Eastern, live on the Golasso America YouTube channel. Have a good couple of days. Good luck to Johnny tomorrow, and we'll see you then. Later.